Welcome to Divine Speech in African Traditionalism. I am your host, Augustine Ayenbisa Ayala. To seek permission to speak, I rise before my father and my mother, the two individuals who taught me right from wrong. I rise before my grandfather and grandmother, whom I call my first ancestors. I rise before the deities, the land deities, the water deities, and the sky deities. I rise before the goddesses, especially the goddess Maat, to give us balance in presenting this event, African Spirituality mini Conference in Essex County College, Newark, New Jersey. I rise before the god Jehuti, the god that has inspired me, with the wisdom of speech. And I rise before Amon-Ra, the supreme being, whom my tradition calls Na-Wene, to grant us stay in power, so that we'll complete this show and send it back to the studios and for our audience to watch and understand. And with this prayer, I know I'm permitted to speak. Location is Essex County College, Zachary Yamba College in Newark, New Jersey, on March 19, 2016.
Traditional African practices and religions are rooted in honoring and working with the source, or God, if you'd like to use that term, through the elements and nature. Those are the first two ways, through the elements, natural forces, and nature. So in the Santeria practice, Orisha are considered as selected heads. So that word can be broken out, that we could get into the whole Yoruba language. We're not going to do that today. However, they say that people who are called to those practices are selected heads. They have been chosen through their destiny to be a part of these religions, and how that expresses itself in a person's life is based on that person's own individual destiny. And traditional practices, even though they deal with the community, it is first about the individual and how the individual lives their life and their pathway to completing their destiny. The community, the construction of the religion, the deities that are in these religions, in addition to the ancestors, are all there for that one person's destiny, and works individually for each person's destiny. Unlike when we go into other types of traditions where we get together as a group, and the message that we hear as a group, we all have to take in that message and dismantle the message to try to apply it to our life. In these practices, the information that you're given is germanely, expressly for you. And how you express that is about your own life. So you have to answer in some ways to yourself, as it relates to the tenets of that particular practice. So in that practice, it says that you should live your life with good character, iwapele, as it is said in the Yoruba, and so on and so forth. Then that's one of the things you need to do. How you express that is of your own individuality.
Again, Mama Queen Elemi Gale, welcome to Divine Speech in African Traditionalism.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you rose to be in this enviable position of being a Mambo Queen.
How did I get here? Well, I first started out as a priestess of Oshun in Santeria, the Yoruba practice, and then the deities told me that I needed to go on further into Voodoo, and the Loa told me that I needed to become Mambo Asogwe, which is the highest initiation in Voodoo.
My goodness. And this morning, when you were giving your presentation, you encourage us all to participate in your presentation. What was the purpose of that?
Traditional religions are religions of participation. They have not stayed alive all these years without participation from community, without the magnification of the individual. And these are practices that are oral traditions. And the only way that oral traditions are carried on, whether it be to the individual or to the collective, is through participation, through observation, through manually doing something, versus they didn't have books. So we had no choice but to learn things through all our senses. So participation is key in activating all of your senses to become a part of the whole.
Okay, I'm also, despite the fact that I'm a TV host, I'm also a historian. And I know a little bit about the Haitian Revolution that came about through our tradition known as voodoo. Can you enlighten us on that a little bit?
I'm not sure which part you'd like me to enlighten.
How we got our freedom, how we liberated ourselves from the French Napoleonic, forces.
Well, again, we come back to in Haiti very specifically, more so than I would have to say more so than in Cuba, and even in Brazil, the Haitians used voodoo as a way not only to socialize. It was a very big social scene, if you will, even though people were getting together to commune and to worship. Because the voodoo religion has so many different layers in terms of hierarchy. There are people who can just be present and enjoying what's happening without necessarily being initiated priests. So people use those opportunities starting from late in the evening to ending in the wee hours of the morning, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning. People use that opportunity to organize, to start coups. So they used it not only for religious purposes, not only for social purposes, but also they used it to empower themselves to be able to have their own coups to overthrow.
My goodness. Now, I'm talking about face to face here. Haiti was the first African nation out of the continent. Ghana was the first African nation, to gain independence from colonial domination. There's something strange happening in Ghana today. That traditional religions were banned from participating in national celebrations. Would you believe that?
I do believe that, because it tells me that colonialism has really worked and that economics has surpassed the value of what traditions give to the people who support those economics. It's unfortunate, but it's heartbreaking. But we see this all over the world. We see where traditional religions, especially religions that come from Africa, are demonized and looked at as they're not as valid as everything else. In the United States, Santeria, which is under the umbrella of Yoruba, they went to Congress. The Church of Babaluaye in Florida, they went to Congress to prove this is a religion like any other religion. The Yoruba faith is one of the 10th largest religions in the world. That says a lot. But if we as a community are not pooling our funds together, we're not showing that we have a voice. If we don't recognize our voice, then economics will always, unfortunately, suppress that.
But the thing is Nkrumah likened religion in Ghana as a triangle, with Christianity to the west, Islam to the east, and traditionalism as the foundation. Now, under Nkrumah, there was no time that we celebrated our independence without the pouring of libation. Even our constitution guarantees that traditionalists be protected. And yet the government has declared that there is a ban on the pouring of libation. So I'm leading a struggle, a movement against that. And I'm glad that I'm meeting all of you here today. Would you, as the leader of your organization, assist me in this effort?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because without the forefathers, there would be no government. There would be no Ghana.
Right.
There would be no people today that are supporting the economy. We forget where we came from. And absolutely, I would support you with that.
Just give me a little education on two words, Legba and Loa.
Legba and Loa. Well, Loa means spirit, and those energies are aspects of the God force. So they're different aspects. There's Gede and the Gede family that oversees the dead and people who have passed on. You have Dambala, who is the deity of whiteness that has to do with character and personality, persecution. So you have different Loa that oversees aspects of human life. Many times people associate them with looking like saints, but this is our humanness. We need something to look at. We need something that kind of resembles us. But in all actuality, these are just amalgamations of natural energy, as we talked about before, earth-based religions and practices. Legba or Elegba, Elegbara, Elegwa, he's called. Some people say Eshu from the Ifa path. He is the owner of the crossroads, the gatekeeper of the crossroads, the one that tells us in life, if you go right, this is what's going to happen. If you go left, this is going to. He is the Orisha of choice. You know, people say he's a road opener. Yes, he is. But he's more importantly, or as importantly, he is the deity of choice. He gives human beings choice so that we can make the best decision based on the circumstances that we're in. And he opens the way for newness, for an avenue that we never considered. In our humanness, we are so limited in our thinking. The deities are so much more vast in what they can show us. Legba is definitely, he's my father as an Orisha in the Orisha religion. So we could be here all day talking about it.
Say something to my listeners and viewers about our tradition, why it is important for us to carry them forward.
Identity. In the world today, we do not see. We have to go to the Discovery Channel. We have to go to National Geographics. We have to go specifically to places to find out about who we are. And not enough people today know enough. When I say that, I'm making a very general statement, of course, to pass down some of these traditions, any kind of part of our traditions, to young people. Identity, identity, identity. We look at other cultures, we go into businesses, they have shrines in their businesses, they wear their traditional clothes, they have holidays and they celebrate that, yet we have to go out of our way to do that. And when we do go out of our way to do that, people are looking at us. We need to make it where this is organic, just like everyone else. And so the more that we continue to uplift our traditions is the more that people will say, this person's living their tradition. And that's it. Versus negative connotations that can come with that. So identity, identity, identity. With identity, we know who we are. With identity, we know where we come from. With identity, we know where we stand in life.
Mambu Queen, thank you for appearing before Divine Speech.
Thank you.
Don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. People often say, motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why I recommend it daily. So I'm going to constantly be coming back to motivate you. Do you understand that? People say, oh, come on, Felicia, you talked about the rejuvenation. Yeah, you bathed yesterday, didn't you? You got to bathe today. You brushed your teeth yesterday, you got to do it today. The spiritual system said, no matter how glorious you are today, you got to be glorious tomorrow. And then you got to be glorious the next day. Just like the sun rises and sets and comes back. So you just can't live off your reputation. Oh man, I used to be bad 5 years ago, and you're still living off that reputation. You ain't did nothing since then. No, ancient Kemet says, I must be ma'at every day. I must be ma'at every time I speak. I must be ma'at every place I go. Just like the sun. Just imagine if the sun acted like Negroes. We would have all frozen to death a long time ago. People, if I've said anything of value, remember spirituality opens you up to the universe. Take it and use it in your life. If I have said anything that upsets you, just get over it.
Welcome to Divine Speech in African Traditionalism. Iya Folayo E. Wood, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your presentation today, what you do as a priestess, and the overall presentation, why you were invited here and everything else.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here today as well to speak about African spirituality. So I am a priestess in the Ifa Orisha tradition. I'm an Ianifa and Olorisha. As well, I'm a scholar of the tradition. So I'm working on my doctorate in African religions, and I also lecture at New York City College of Technology in African American Studies and in religion. So today here, I moderated a discussion about the film Besouro, which is a Brazilian film, very beautifully shot, and it displays some different aspects of Orisha religion, as well as the ways in which African traditions were used in the resistance of slavery and oppression post-slavery in Brazil.
I see. So how was the reception?
The reception was great. The crowd was great, and basically we just covered a couple of the historical aspects about Brazil. For instance, that it was the last country in the Americas to abolish the slave trade, so that's one of the reasons why the various African cultures are very strong there, and in particular we focused on Yoruba culture. The audience was great. They were very knowledgeable, so we had a really wonderful discussion.
But since we have been, when we were enslaved and then colonized and everything else happened to us, we were told that all these things we do are no good. How are we changing that?
I think one of the main ways to change it is through experience and through education. For me, I know, thankfully, I had never actually learned or internalized the idea that African traditions were bad. I just didn't know anything about them at all. And so my first experience with them actually was in Ghana. I went to Kumasi, to the Black and White Shrine in Kumasi, and I just experienced something that was so exhilarating and something, it was like my ancestral DNA just woke up when I went to a ceremony there. And so after that, I began to learn more and seek knowledge and seek out mentors to advise me. And so I would say for those of us who are seeking more knowledge and seeking to dispel some of this negativity around African spirituality, the main thing is to live life well, to be good people, to let people see us as practitioners, to be open about our practice and answer questions, even though sometimes it may be a little time consuming to do so, and to also encourage education, which is part of the reason why I felt it necessary and beneficial to study the tradition as well and to be able to teach young people. So I teach, mostly freshmen and sophomores in college now, and so I like to think that I help to dispel some of that negative ideology that some of them may be coming into my classrooms with.
I just spoke about our being enslaved and also our being colonized. When we were fighting for our independence, a mentor of mine, the late Francois Tego, who had studied in Guinea with under Kwame Nkrumah when he was overthrown, he told me a story about the fact that Nkrumah taught them that Africa's independence struggle was three-pronged. One was to get the political independence, the second was to get an economic independence, and the third was to get our religious independence. Nkrumah led Ghana to independence. Today, if I tell you that in Ghana, traditionalism, the pouring of libation has been banned, would you believe me?
I believe you because I know, unfortunately, how, despite being politically independent, again, as Nkrumah said, there are three prongs to independence, and unfortunately, those other two prongs, the economic and the religious independence, never quite happened.
Right.
And so, you're seeing the same thing happen in Nigeria. I spend quite a lot of time in Nigeria, and while traditional practices certainly haven't been banned, people are definitely discriminated against. You're even seeing now, which I never saw when I first started going, but this past year when I was there, you're even now seeing signs, public signs up in public spaces disparaging the traditions, and things of that nature. And so it's really heartbreaking. It's really, really heartbreaking, especially because these traditions really hold so many of the keys for so many other types of empowerment, for economic empowerment, for intellectual empowerment, and we're not tapping into them. Despite having become politically independent, we never quite broke free and became re-independent in our minds. And so that's the biggest battlefield right now. It's one of those things too where it's you're seeing so much of this happening on the continent. Here in the diaspora, people have been so hungry for their cultural heritage that we have fought and to embrace these cultures in many cases, and to embrace these religions and things that unfortunately some of our brothers and sisters who have taken them for granted a little bit, who were born into it, and then later turned against it in various ways, have sort of thrown by the wayside. And so for me, what I think would be the most beneficial thing to happen and the best thing to happen is for us all to come together and to understand that, as Nkrumah preached with Pan-Africanism, that there's so much more power in us if we come together, if we unify ourselves, across traditions, across ethnicities, across language barriers, across national barriers, and all of these things that seek to separate us, because they've done a really good job at that.
So I'm leading a fight now against the government of Ghana to lift the ban on the pouring of libation during national celebrations. You, as the leader of your organization, would you help me achieve this goal?
Yeah, we would be absolutely happy to stand with you. I actually lead two different organizations. I lead the Orisha Community Development Corporation. I'm the executive director, and that's the organization that would probably be more in line with the type of work that you're doing. We work in advocacy for African traditions, particularly the Orisha tradition, but we've also done advocacy work around Haitian Vodou and other African traditions that have been maligned. So certainly, both as a representative of the organizations that I head and also as an individual, I'm very happy to lend my support to your effort.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So let me first bring up Brother Lawrence Muhammad, and then we're going to move on to Brother Bishop for now. Let's give them both a round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum. Let me begin in the name of Allah, beneficent and merciful, descendant of all servants, messengers, and prophets. And thank you for giving us the Torah and the sanctum, and Jesus giving us the gospel. Thank you, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah will find from the Holy Quran. And we are especially grateful, Almighty God, Allah, for His intervention in our affairs in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. We thank Him for His wise choice and true service, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we are students under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. What a blessing. I want to share with us today the words of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we have to thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan because had not he stood up, then the door of this great wisdom in our African history, as taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we would not have a platform to stand. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, this is the real reason we are in this condition of seeking justice and peace. Because the American government will not give her black slaves justice, nor her black slaves, nor will she allow or help them to go for themselves. She will not do that. She may be forced to do it, but she is not going to do it willingly. Because of this, the God of freedom, justice, and equality is angry, and so is the nation of peace. We are that nation of peace. The original man in this book, he taught us, know thyself.
This is Brother Seth Mensah from the city of New York. Brother Mensah, what brings you to this place?
We were invited to come to honor this occasion to really distinguish between what tradition is, what the religion is and what spirituality is as it relates to African traditional belief system. So we're here and we also want to understand that this thing that is going on here is not just happening here physically, it's also happening in the spiritual realm, and that we are not on our own doing these things for our sake. And we also want the world to understand that African, as African, have to stick to our own. This is our God-given religion that we cannot forget, we cannot afford to let it go. So no matter what we do, we have Islamic tradition, we have Christian tradition, as well as African belief tradition. All of them actually come from African belief tradition, both Christian and Muslim, Islam. So we have to be proud of the fact that our belief tradition is the oldest and must thrive. We cannot help other people to kill it, and that's what we're here for.
My goodness. But when you come to this place, you see elderly people, dress code, wearing the traditional hats, and things of that nature, and they carrying forth the traditions. But when you get back home and then we watch the television shows, we see all the strong propaganda that is being propagated against us. How do we counter that?
Like other brothers have already said, we have to fight them with propaganda. And the biggest, the good side of what we are fighting for is the truth, and you cannot really suppress it. It's going to come out. So if you look at a country of 300 million population, and people were brought from Africa for over 400 years ago, and they still believe and know their belief system, that tells you that region cannot die. It's going to survive.
So, Dr. Kalfani, the director of the Africana State, is here in Essex County College, has started this. How often do we think that we should be having something like this? On general, when we're talking about organizing on this bigger scale, probably every 3 months we'll do. But on a personal level, I think it's something that we have to remember every day. We cannot wait until we come here. Thank you, Mr. Mensah.
This is from Colonel Wa, chief official and the high priest of Amun Ra, says, I am a noble for whom one should act, one of firm heart to the end of life. I am one beloved of his city, praised by his district, kind-hearted to his town, and his community. I have done that which people love and God praises. I was one truly venerated and had no fault, who gave bread to the hungry and clothes to the naked. I put an end to pain and erased wrongdoing. I buried the blessing. I supported the aged and satisfied the needs of the have-nots. I was a shelter for the child and a help to the widow, one who gave rank even to an infant. I did these things knowing their value and knowing their reward from the Lord of Ma'at, in a word to endure in the mouth of the people without end, to be remembered for years and years to come. So, why do I say that? I say that as far as the institution building. We had holidays and all that. We have it all worked out, at least at our temple. And on holidays like tomorrow is the spring equinox. Next week we celebrate something called Hinek Ma'at. It's an offering to the Ma'at. It's an offering to those 42 principles. We do a ceremony at the temple where the community commits in front of each other's face to live in these 42 principles. We do it twice a year. 2 weeks or a week after the spring equinox and a week after the fall equinox. On the cusp of our holidays, us at the temple, we charge ourselves to take care of those less fortunate than ourselves. So we take up a fund, we do a clothing drive, we do food drives. Anytime one of our holidays come up, it's automatically a reminder in our mind that we got to take care of those who are less fortunate than us. So we're not staying just in our philosophy. It's one thing to talk philosophy and talk about helping the community, but when it's embedded in your philosophy to help the community, that's a whole different thing. The Jews, when you see them, they're not helping each other because they just like helping each other. They're helping because it's in their religion that they gotta help one another. That's why it says in our text, he or she who struggles with a brother and sister in their town shall rejoice in victory with them. So yes, we do the spiritual development, and yes, we build our temple in our own community, but yes, we have a charge to assist those less fortunate than ourselves who don't even believe the same thing that we believe. So the charge in the African tradition is connect with Neter. That is your most high. That is your highest reality. Connect with the Neter. Those are the glorious laws of nature that Infelici kept talking about. It is your charge to connect with those forces of nature. It is your job to represent and connect your ancestors. And after you got all these connections, then your final charge is Suruj Ta, which is to heal the world. And you do that one person at a time, starting with yourself. Thank you for listening. I'm the Him Neter Biddy, Rasan Ku Kepler, Chief and Head Priest of the Temple of Anu.
My name is Oluwole Abiyomi Ifakunle Adetutu Alakbede, and I'm a traditional African priest. I'm based in Harlem, and been practicing African tradition, spiritual systems since the late 60s. And so I'm an initiated priest, as well as to deity called Obatala, as well as Ifa, or Rumila, who's the god of divination and knowledge and wisdom since time immemorial. We believe in Olodumare, the creator of heaven and earth, and whom all the Irumale and Agmamale exist to know as Lord and command, the originator and creator of all things, discovered and yet to be discovered. And we believe in Orunmila, the great diviner, witness creation, second only to Olodumare, owner of medicine, more powerful than medicine, the immense orbit that fought the day of death. He too, the Irumale and Agmamale, are able to refix creatures of ill luck and restore them. So that's part of what my belief system is, and I've been involved with African spiritual tradition as a result of African liberation movement. And so today we're here, been giving some discussion about the importance of African liberation and how the advent of the African spirituality is still continuing in the Africans in the diaspora, as in Haiti, as in Cuba, as in Trinidad and Tobago, Brazil, but here also in the United States, and all of what the odds and all the plummet and against of all the different people that have tried to hold us down. That is something that we're still maintaining, our traditions. And we go back to Nigeria. I'll be back in Nigeria with my family this coming July, and we take regular visits and impress upon us, all our students, my students, to learn the language, to learn the culture, to visit Africa, to try to invest in Africa, and to become vehicles by which we can restore ourselves as African people.
Thank you very much. But Dr. Kalafani has done a marvelous job by bringing us together today. I myself, I'm an African traditionalist from Ghana, from the northern part of Ghana. Our tradition is called Bakabako. Bakabako means worshippers of obelisks. Tekeno. Yes. So when you talk to me, I feel the energy coming out of you. And I believe Dr. Khalfani should do this more often. Now, when you talk about African liberation, if I tell you today that there's one country in Africa that has banned the pouring of libation, will you believe it?
No, I wouldn't believe it. Which country is that?
That is Ghana.
I can't even believe it. There's no possible way that should be. That is part of our own African spiritual systems. It's the foundation by which we practice and believe in God. And the pouring in of libation either through water or through minerals, through palm wine, or using gin or gogoro. In Nigeria we call gogoro. Our native language. No, that is crazy.
Well, I'm leading an organization. My organization, this TV show, Divine Speech in African Traditionalism, I'm leading, a fight against the ban on the pouring of libation. It's called Lift the Ban on the Pouring of Libation. Would you and your organization be in a position to assist us?
Absolutely. We would definitely like to count us in Ile Omoopwe of New York and Harlem. We would definitely be able to assist you either in writing letters or to be able to go there and to perform anything that will liberate our people. Our people need to know their traditions. They need to know the importance of being who they are and worshiping things that will worship our ancestors and look and represent us. So absolutely, how can that even be possible in Africa, of all places, that libation is not being poured?
But the fact that we have been brainwashed enough to believe in other things besides our own, and when I see you doing this, the way you're expressing yourself on what you know about traditionalism, is inspiring. How do we get our people to understand this very well, that other images from other races may be looking perfect, but they really don't have anything to do with it?
Yeah, I mean African spiritualism and our African selves, if you can't see God inside of yourself, then nobody will ever dispute who is Buddha. We know that the Buddha belongs to Chinese.
Yes.
Whenever we hear of Krishna, we know he belongs to India.
Yes.
Whenever you say Jesus, it can't belong only to Africa. There is everywhere. So this idea of where these are religions, Muhammad and Christianity and the other different religions, but we have our own. And we have multiple traditions. And like in Ghana, you have not only the Ga, you have the Ashanti, you have and you have even the Yoruba, which are still there. Because remember, we have voodoo, yes, very strong in Benin and Togo and very close in the bordering neighbor countries. And so the traditions are very, very strong and still rich. But the idea of not being able to pour libations it saddened me. It saddened me to even know that. And I really think that people need to come together and realize that, so many people are practicing their natural traditions under the guise of Christianity because they want because they want money. And money is the root of not of evil, but it has no value. The land of Ghana is so important that people need to begin to understand the worship and the connection that we have as African peoples and connect to our land, to our religions, to our worship, to our culture, our languages, which is so very important. And as you start to losing that, as we go further and further, we start seeing people losing their connectivity to who they are in themselves. Then they are just taking on foreign gods and foreign images in which they can never feel whole. And so they are now losing their shrines, burning their shrines, to be able to give themselves for the sake of money. And money is not anything but a piece of paper. And the value is in human life.
Now, we were watching a movie in there about, I don't know what that was, the founder.
Yes, his name was or surgeon, Fumi the First.
Right.
Yes, and he was the founder of the African Liberation Movement, or he was one of the founders here. There was Chief Pianki. There was quite a few people. Was people like who went to Ghana, who was a very big here. Was Nana. We used to call him Nana. He was Denizulu. Right. It was fantastic. Right. You know, he was a very, very good in terms of really bringing people the idea of and knowing the natural way of African people, and knowing the language and the drumming, the music, the dance, and bringing the culture, and then later bringing the religion. But the culture is really what we have to do. We have to reconnect our people to their culture. We have to show them that this is not evil, this is not bad, this is good stuff, and that we need to show them that, you know, it's the food that we eat is just as natural as the food we eat. It's just as natural as the medicines that we take. Our natural medicines come from herb, plants, and minerals. They have been able to develop all the systems of medicine from our traditionalist medicine. Our traditional medicine has taught so much of the Western medicine. They have come and watched what we did, particularly in terms of blood clotting and stuff like that. That came from Ghana. One of the medicines that came to stop her was from a traditional medicine man from Ghana. Okay. So, you know, and that's very, very, just in clotting the blood. And when they saw what he was doing, to be able to stop and do open heart surgeries and things like this, that were being performed for 8,000 of years. I mean, Africans have been existent for so much longer than the Europeans. They even have a sense of what history they even have. So, yeah.
How often do we think we should be having African spirituality conferences?
Like once a week, is that good?
Excellent.
I think we should try every week. Yes. Yes, at least every week. We'll try there. We'll start there. Yes. But it's, of course, every day. I'm an African every day. It's without unapologetic. I'm not apologetic about who I am. I'm not apologetic about what I worship. I'm not apologetic about what I'm going to believe in. I'm not apologetic because I know that this is something inside of me. The spirit of my ancestors still takes hold of me, and they push me forward.
But then the propaganda is too strong.
It's not strong. This is what we're doing now. We're fighting propaganda with propaganda. But the propaganda now, the truth, the lump is the bone of the pounded yam. The cob is the bone of the maize. To speak so after verification is the bone of truthfulness. The truth is the truth. No matter the duration of time, it cannot be submerged. And the more it is submerged, the more it rears its head. And for this reason, let us all remain truthful. And so we will go back to the African truth. This is a verse of African proverb. This is a verse of African proverb. No matter how much we submerge the truth, it will rise. And so we too, like the truth, will rise.
On camera, Divine Speech in African Traditionalism would like to invite you to our studios for an interview.
I would love to come. Thank you very much.
He studied the Yoruba system, he studied the Kemetic system, he studied the Buddhist system, and he's a yogi, he is a Reiki master, practices, understands Tantra, lots and lots of things, and so he's a wealth of knowledge. You can see his bio in the program, but without further ado, Brother Shakarara.
Greetings, Africa's people. I love my African people, and that's what really got me on this path. I'm today presenting the awesome task of ending in a way trying to summarize the closure, the framework to all these wonderful speakers who came before me. A lot of times I find people feel awkward about asking questions, so in my presentation I'm going to try to answer some of the unsaid questions. I see, maybe people and be like, oh, if I ask questions, I feel stupid. No, ask questions. This is a school, it's a learning institution. Okay? It is a place to learn. I know when I sat there, when I was once upon listening to the lectures, sitting at the feet of my elders and my teachers, I had tons of questions. I mean, it was a question from Dan Server. I didn't know what the question was. I didn't want to ask it because I was embarrassed. And years later, I would remember the question I didn't ask. It's crazy. Elders come, elders go. You never know what's an opportunity to really expand yourself. And you know what? This gets into the later. Expanding yourself, you answer questions, make video people. Okay, so I'm an ancestral piece. So we're going to deal with the concept of verbs, concepts of process, and then institutions. The kind of weave together all that's gone before us. So, when I say an ancestral piece, people are like, well, what's that? Okay. What interpretation? Somebody who practices traditional practices of his ancestors, of his ancestors, which is a great thing, and in cases true. So if I was a Yoruba practitioner, I'd be an ancestral priest. If I was a Hala, the Yoruba practitioner, I'd be an ancestral priest. If I was a Tibetan practitioner, in a sense, I'd be an ancestral priest. However, there's another understanding of that. That understanding is one who practices and serves to the ancestors. Okay? Slightly different. So, what's that mean? It means that the job of the ancestral priest is to lift up and heal, first and foremost, the spirits of our ancestors. In one piece, to bring them into life, to live in life individually, familiarly, and collectively in both community and nation. Kind of strange. Most people haven't heard that before. Okay, a little background. What we are familiar with today, primarily the Tibetic and the Yoruba, are voodoo to out of Buddha, are the remnants of what survived the Middle Passage, the Ma'afa. Remnants, not everything came across. African wisdom is deep, old, and vast. My particular priesthood, and Google priesthood, ancestral priests are formerly, did not make it across, pretty much, fundamentally. There's a little bitty practice in Cuba that had some of it. But for the most part, ancestral priests did not come across. So, what are we? Our job, when we're dealing with the communal spirit, the individual spirit, was things like marriages, dating, funeral, conflict resolution. Okay? Why was it important? Well, let's do it in reverse order. Let's start with, let's do it in the normal order. Dating. When you date somebody, what's that mean? For African Americans, it's incredibly important.
Good job. Good job. Good job.
Yeah, that is.
I'll speak in our language. Yelmana, Bileti Yaba Yel, Yaba, Akibula, Yel. Tete to Bula, to Komala, the Palna, La Pom. The committee in the Sheba, the committee Zaha, the committee Zina, the committee Beri. Beri Nero, Yaba Bio, Ayude Dr. Kalfani, a Pina Sera, Umbat Beri, the Bank to Mena, Beri to some Bank to Mena to one two to Mena. Bellet Lagina. The Fulla to Sormala to Yavrama, Latin Marmala to Mayavrama, Latin Tengatin Gamma. Tengala Tengama de Africa, Yaba Tengala, a Kibula, Tengam. Beetmo Comamana, Butenga for the Tengala de America. Comita Tengam Tengamala, the Africa Tengamala, the Akibula Tenganala, La Tengama de America Tengama, the Lantau.
Gorbio, the Gatonwa, the Turnena, the Beere, the Totamena. Mantomemela, your boy in it.
We are here today to celebrate African spirituality, to celebrate the ways that we as African people have survived the Ma'afa. This is the first ever African spirituality conference that is dedicated to bringing together Africans from all the spiritual traditions from which we come. It doesn't matter if it's the Kemetic, the Yoruba, the Akan, the Sangomas, the Santeria, the Lukami, the Candomblé, Christianity or Islam, all of those things that we come from that manifest themselves in the world today, that we have dedicated ourselves to transforming the world in which we live, that we are here today to talk about them. We talked about them and we celebrated them, but we also learned how those spiritual systems were the glue that helped us to survive the unsurvivable. We survived the unsurvivable to the point of thriving because we were in tune with the great power of our ancestors, of Ogun, of Oshun, of Yemenya, of Asar and Aset, for all those spiritual forces that come with us in ways that we know and ways that we don't know. For Eshu for opening the door, for Ogun for clearing our path, for all those ways in which we did those things that elevated us and moved us to another level. We're here to see what that glue is and to know that we have to then take that out to the community to transform our community, because our community is stuck in a place of binding to white supremacy, and that we must uplift ourselves from that binding. We must inoculate ourselves from our sicknesses so that we then move to a place of upliftment, and that then as we uplift those who came before us. We uplift those who come after us, and that we continue to move forward on an agenda that changes us and forever transforms us, so that we're never transfixed on the things that we were stuck in before, and that our inoculation is one that is permanent, because that energy that goes through our veins is one that is ties back to the ancestors he just spoke of in his native language, that then enables us to connect to those languages and those spiritual forces to transform ourselves, our families, and our community. Ashe?
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe.
Before he speaks, I want everybody who speaks another language to say something in the language from which you come, so that that the energy of that language uplifts us and is involved in the essence of what's going on in this space. Even if it's just you speak a Jamaican accent, let that reign.
Right.
Pintu melumbale, anka bema mi Kenya to be Benjamin. Bebe na kaka itu kwamba mfacheru amau obe mena Yoruba ambebura yoro mina kanga na nyankula o aila sausao ala dari ambebi nyonfe ambebura yoro mina pepe opulu
Dari
Aka yeroke
Australia ponyanko da wasi pisa odi aba na yenyina ye beshe ha fa ojansa eti kan na ma yenyina yenya ahomka
Dari
atolo nyako oika omukambo no ba fremra before ngam mu yire tole obambile ose ku na otrumit ki family tole jane obambile bia tise mina from I'll say this in English. Our mental slavery thing is the biggest problem I've seen, and we need to liberate ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, what comes to my mind first is they say, Jumbo, greetings, East Africa, Swahili. What came to me was the importance of the spirit healing us and the family healing. There's so much broken family, and if we really work on healing the family, probably everything else will fall in place. And I see that just from all the people who came to me about working with their family for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I was like, wow. We need to go away from European head doctors. We fixed our problems for thousands of years the old way. Why we stopped using the old ways? It worked. Let's go back to using how we would heal our families that way. And do that.
Oh, sure.
Let's go.
Ujahi greetings. We as African people have been dominated by racism, white supremacy, for the last 500 years. White supremacy is the most powerful system/religion ever created by European people to dominate non-white people. Today brought me to a deep understanding of the fact that our mental sanity and liberation will come through our guidance from our ancestors and our embracing our own traditions. So we as African people, we have to find out first who we are, and most importantly, understand our enemies, because those enemies have control over us in ways that we are not consciously aware of. And once we are able to get our African sanity back, the next thing is black self-respect. That is what white people have utilized to destroy the African soul. And once we have that black self-respect, everything else will fall in place behind that.
Oh, wow.
A.M. Hotep, Mfundishi Jehutimas Ka Inharu Hassan Salim. This spiritual mini-meeting of the minds was excellent because it brings all of us African people together in what I call operational unity, which means that we might have a 10-point program and 8 of our programs are the same. And so instead of us spending time on our differences, we're spending time on what we have in common, because we have to build a nation and we have to prepare ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. And so it was just good to be able to commune and be with our African brothers, because I just came back from the continent and the colonial mindset is there. Even among our brothers, they know their language, they know their culture, but they still have a colonial mindset. And I believe that some of the Africans who are here in the West were sent here. We were sent here so that we can return back with a sane consciousness. And so this is operational unity. We're working together as one spiritual family. And that's the power here. So I just want to say thank you for being a part of this.
Okay.
Good. Yes, thank you. All right, my bro.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just go around that way. We keep moving.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.